recognize Scott.
The hairy man.
It's Santa Claus. Oh, the ugly tie. He called Bruce ahead of time.
Mayor, I just started the YouTube feed, so we're live on YouTube as of now.
Thanks, Glenn. What I'm going to do is rely on the COVID preamble from our last meeting and read through that. I don't think I have a copy of it.
I just emailed you another copy.
Thank you, Cheryl. This should work so long as everything is still the same, I would think. We'll wing it here, and if for some reason it's not, please let me know and I can make the adjustments, I guess. Anyway, the hour being 7 p.m. on Monday, December 14th, 2020, I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council meeting. We got it right. Before starting the meeting, though, I'd like to read the following. As mayor of the Laconia City Council, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone, with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members have the ability to communicate during this meeting through the Zoom platform, and the public has access to watch the live YouTube video at https://www.youtube.com/LaconiaNH. Listen to this meeting through dialing the following phone number, 1-646-558-8656, or participate by the Zoom app. Webinar ID 853-6486-9990, password 941215. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting using Zoom, and instructions are provided on the City of Laconia's website at www.laconianh.gov. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 524-3877, extension 249, or email at cityclerk@laconianh.gov. And D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states his presence, also please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just do one thing, I'm going to give you an updated webinar ID number while you're just finishing up the Zoom and the meeting instructions. So the webinar ID number would be 817-3856-3758.
Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate it. So without further ado, I would ask our city clerk, Cheryl Hebert, to call the roll.
I apologize. My phone rang to do with the Zoom meeting. So if you can just give me one moment on the roll call.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Scott, will you be so kind as to repeat the ID number again?
Absolutely. The webinar ID number is 817-3856-3758.
I apologize. Just someone asking a question about the Zoom. Are we ready for me to do the roll call?
Ready for you to do the roll call.
Okay, perfect. Counselor Cheney.
Here and alone.
Thank you. Counselor Susie.
Here at home and alone.
Counselor Littman.
Present, here, home and alone.
Thank you. Counselor Haynes.
You're muted.
Here at City Council chambers and alone.
Thank you. Counselor Hamel.
Here at home and alone.
Thank you. Counselor Felch.
You're at home alone and my cat.
Mayor Hosmer.
I'm here, home and alone. Before going any further, I would ask Councilor Susie to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
Of the
of the
United
States of America
and to the republic
for which it
which it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Susie. As stated previously, our recording secretary this evening is City Clerk Cheryl Hebert. We're also joined by City Manager Scott Myers. And I do believe helping out on IT tonight is City Finance Manager Glenn Smith. Just for a schedule change, relatively minor, but I would like to move item 22, which is council comments, to take place right after the mayor's report. And I would ask, I had a discussion I think it was this weekend with Council Haynes, who brought up a very good point that maybe that's the appropriate place to have it going forward as well. So certainly something we can discuss and weigh in on at a future date. Moving on to item number 7, which is acceptance of minutes from previous meetings. Minutes of these are the regular meeting minutes of November 23rd, 2020. Minutes of the meeting were distributed to the City Council on Tuesday, November 24th, 2020. It was submitted by Cheryl Hebert, City Clerk, with no changes or corrections submitted to the clerk. The minutes will be accepted as distributed. Moving on to item number 8, consent and action items. The next item is a request by the Weirs Action Committee to use Endicott Rock parking lot for Laconia Motorcycle Week parking from June 12th to 2021 through June 20th, 2021. We'll repeat that. They'd like to use the parking lot from June 12th, 2021 through June 20th, 2021. And to waive all special event fees in connection with the requested use. On behalf of the Weirs Action Committee, Robert Ames has requested the use of this Endicott Rock parking lot for Laconia Motorcycle Week, parking from, as I said, the 12th through the 20th of June, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. City Council approval is being requested because this funding event is anticipating revenues above $2,000. As you'll see in your packet this evening, Mr. Ames has provided the attached profit and loss information for Weir's Action Committee and a letter requesting that all special event fees be waived. There is no direct cost to the city. The recommendation is that this request be approved. The Parks and Recreation Commission has approved this request conditioned upon further approval from the City Council. I will say before addressing the proposed motion, I would say that this motion certainly is subject, an approval of this motion would be subject to the prevailing COVID-19 conditions, and the City Council will reserve the right to revisit this event as the event draws closer. So I'd be looking for a motion and a move to approve the request by the Weir's Action Committee to use Endicott Rock parking lot for Laconia Motorcycle Week parking from June 12th through June 20th, 2021, and to waive all special event fees in connection with the requested use. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Muted.
you,
Yes.
thank you. Counselor Littman? You're muted, Counselor Littman.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
Thank you.
With 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Moving on to agenda item 8B, which is the request from the Lakes Region Sled Dog Club to waive special event license, vendor, and loudspeaker fees for the February 12th to 14th, 2021 sled dog event. As we know, this is a recurring request. A letter of request from the Lakes Region Sled Dog Club is attached. Approval of the club's special event application is scheduled for the Special Events Review Committee on January 6th, 2021. I would also indicate that any motion approved tonight would be subject to prevailing COVID-19 conditions at the time, and the City Council will reserve the right to revisit this event as the event date draws closer. So I'd be looking for a motion this evening to approve the request from Lakes Region Sled Dog Club to waive license, vendor, and loudspeaker fees for the February 12th to 14th, 2021 sled dog event, contingent upon the event's approval at the Special Events Review Committee's January 6th, 2021 meeting. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Hamel. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Moving along now to item number 9, which is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If there is a matter that is not currently on tonight's agenda, now would be the appropriate time for citizens to comment. I would suggest that so we can give everyone a full opportunity to speak this evening. We will be keeping comments limited to 5 minutes. So, Mr. Smith, I'll wait for you to let me know if anyone has desiring to speak tonight.
Mr. Mayor, and Ira Keltz has raised their hand.
Mr. Keltz, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight, and glad you could take this time to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time. I'd like to read a statement on behalf of Temple B'nai Israel and the Jewish Federation of New Hampshire. In the midst of a pandemic, and while many of us are experiencing social isolation, we need even more hope and understanding than ever before. Anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic expressions and actions are growing rapidly and consistently on social media sites and are heinous enough, but even worse when those comments and actions are shared by our elected officials. Public figures should be held to a higher standard. The remarks, statements, and even shared articles from social media sites should never include underlying hateful information. Unfortunately, in our own state and city, Representative Dawn Johnson recently shared comments from the Daily Stormer, a neo-Nazi operated online publication. She mentioned that she was not aware of the source, but she has included other negative and conspiracy theories previously. And as an elected official, it's important for her to condemn these words and images, not share them. We are proud to share that recently our New Hampshire legislature passed and our governor signed a bill, the 14th state in the union, to mandate Holocaust education, Holocaust and genocide education programs in our public schools. We at Temple B'nai Israel and the Jewish Federation of New Hampshire condemn all acts of anti-Semitism. By not speaking out against hate, we condone it with our silence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keltz. I appreciate you again taking the time to join us tonight and share your thoughts.
Mr. Mayor, Carlos Cardona has raised his hand.
Welcome, Mr. Cardona. Glad you could join us this evening, and now would be the appropriate time for you to share your thoughts.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me and allowing me to speak. As a resident of Laconia for the past 12 years, as an former AmeriCorps member in the city that has worked in the school district, as a parent of two children, one who attends the Laconia school district, the other one is too young to attend yet. As a taxpayer, as the guy known for having the house with all the Christmas lights on Old North Main Street, I am asking the city council to not take Don Johnson's words, postings, or actions lightly. Our brothers and sisters in the Jewish community need us to stand in solidarity with them. Hate or any sort of action along anti-Semitism, homophobia, racism, or anything along those lines should not be tolerated in our city. As a business owner that has over 100 employees in the area, I always welcome all, regardless of their background. And I am afraid that this is going to hinder how we do business in the Lakes region. We're starting to get known for extremism and for white supremacist views. As a Latino and as a gay man, this is not what I want my community to look like. This is not where I want my kids to be raised if this continues. And I am concerned that this is something that is happening every election cycle, and it's something that it does not open for civil discourse in our community. I also believe that this raises wounds in different people in our community. I know as a minority, I double check my doors now at night because I'm concerned what this might mean for me and my, people that are Hispanics or any other minority in our community. I am sure that none of you guys want us to feel unsafe in our own homes and in our city. In the many years when I came here as a homeless man and the school district took me in and educated me in the adult education program and lifted me up and gave me a job in the school district and later on opening my company here, I know that this community is better than any of this. But it takes all of us uniting and sending a strong message that this won't be tolerated. While I do know the city council's hands are kind of tied behind their backs where how much they can do in regards to Don Johnson, I do believe that our words and our actions have power. And so the message that you guys will hopefully send tonight is a clear denounce of her actions on social media. So I, again, want to express how disgusted I am with our elected officials expressing themselves in this way This is not the Laconia that I fight for at the state level and at the national level. I'm constantly advocating for this place. On a business level, I'm constantly bringing business people here to our city, multimillionaires from across the country, to do business in the hotel industry. And I am concerned that anytime they research Laconia, New Hampshire, this is what might come up. I am sure that you guys remember years back, this was called the unsafest city in the state because of the robberies that were happening. I'm afraid that this is also not going to look good for us. And I know that my neighbors are concerned. So I'll stop talking. I want to thank you guys all for listening to me and giving me an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cardona. I appreciate you taking time to join us and speak this evening.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
participant identified only as Fire Tablet has raised their hand.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, looks like the hand is raised by someone named Fire Tablet. If you could introduce yourself, let us know perhaps where you live, that'd be greatly appreciated.
My name is Lois Kesson, and I live at 3 Tanglewood Lane. I have, in the last 3 years, moved back. I was educated in the city. I graduated from Laconia High School. I am appalled by this racist and anti-Semitic tweet of Don Johnson. I would like the city elders to condemn it as strongly as possible. I would also like her to resign from the school board. There is no place on a school board for someone who holds those views. And I would like to quote one of my favorite people: "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything." Albert Einstein, who had to leave Germany because of tweets like that. And I really, really want you to do something about it, although I know your hands are tied. And I thank you for letting me speak.
Ms. Kesson, thank you very much for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts. I greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, Dana Hackett has raised her hand.
Welcome, Dana Hackett.
Good evening. Thank you so much for taking a moment to hear me. I think that what everyone has said so far and the idea of staying silent at a time like this is just not an appropriate action. So I live in Laconia. I have an awesome 4-year-old daughter who's going to be in kindergarten this coming fall. And it honestly terrifies me to think of her going to school in a school district with somebody on the school board who has such hateful views and thoughts. And I feel strongly that we take a stand collectively, both as citizens and as all our elected officials, to say how wrong this is. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for hearing me.
Ms. Hackett, thank you very much for joining us this evening and taking time to share your thoughts.
Mr. Mayor, there are no more hands raised.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I greatly appreciate it. Moving on right now to number 10 on our agenda, which is interviews. The first interview is for Marcia Hayward, seeking appointment as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment to a 3-year term expiring at the end of August 2023. Ms. Hayward is requesting appointment as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. There are currently 5 vacant alternate member positions on the board. Interviews of individuals applying for appointment or reappointment to various boards and commissions will be held at this meeting. Appointments will be made at the council's December 28th meeting. So, Marcia, if you're with us, it'd be great if you could introduce yourselves. Tell us a little about yourself and your background and why you would like to serve as an alternate member of the ZBA.
Hello, Andrew. Can you hear me?
Very well. Thank you, Marcia.
Good evening, Council. I'm Marcia Hayward, and I am a retired educator for over 30 years. And during my educational career as a classroom teacher and adjunct professor, principal of a high school, I was so busy with my career that I did not have time to do much civic duty. And so thus, now that I am retired, I feel an obligation to give back to my city. I believe in civic responsibility. And so therefore, I am offering my skills and talent because I hear the city could use some help. So here I am.
Thank you, Marcia. I didn't know teaching wasn't a civic duty. Certainly it's a, I thought of it that I think of it as such, but certainly appreciate you applying for this opportunity. I think you also bring an awful lot of positive energy with you as well. I don't think you mentioned that. But I will open this up to council members right now. If you have any questions for Marcia Hayward this evening. Seeing none, Marcia, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it.
Good evening.
Moving along to 10B, it's been brought to our attention that Marnie Blaisdell Schultz was unable to make it this evening, and we will be moving this to our next city council meeting. So that interview at this point will be postponed. Moving along to agenda item 11, which is nominations, appointments, and elections. The topic is the appointment of Stacy Susi as the planning board's representative to the Lakes Region Planning Commission to fill the remaining term of Peter Burnett, which is scheduled to expire at the end of June 2021. The city of Laconia is eligible for up to 3 commissioners on the Lakes Region Planning Commission. Currently, Mr. Burnett serves as on the commission as the planning board's representative. His term expires at the end of June 2021 due to scheduling conflicts. Mr. Burnett has requested that another planning board member be nominated to serve out his remaining term at the LRPC. Per RSA 36:46, the City Council is the entity that appoints members to the commission after nomination by the planning board. At the December 1st, 2020 meeting, the planning board approved the nomination of Stacy Susi as the board's representative on the LRPC. So right now, I'd be looking for a motion to appoint Stacy Susi as the planning board's representative on the Lakes Region Planning Commission to fill the remaining term of Peter Burnett, expiring at the end of June 2021. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Hamel. Is there any further discussion on this motion and nomination? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susi,
Abstain.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
Thank you.
With 5 votes in the affirmative, congratulations to Stacy Susi on her approval as a appointment to the planning board's representative to the LRPC. Thank you very much for your willingness to serve. Moving along to item number 13, which is a public hearing to amend City Code Chapter 5-30, Conservation Commission, Section B, amending the number of members. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the November 25th edition of the Laconia Daily Sun and posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Public Library, Laconia Community Center, and the SAU. The Conservation Commission in the recent past has had issues achieving a quorum at scheduled meetings. The Commission has discussed the issue and has voted to recommend changes to the ordinance that defines their membership. The Commission is recommending going from 7 full-time members and no alternates to 5 full-time members and up to 3 alternates. This change would reduce the number of members needed to achieve a quorum and would allow the council to appoint alternate members. There is no fiscal impact to the city, and action on this item after the public hearing will be taken up under unfinished business. This report was submitted by Dean Trefethen, our planning director. So at 7:29 p.m., I would like to open the public hearing, and anyone who would like to comment on that, now would be the appropriate time to do so.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Gail
sir.
has raised her hand.
Absolutely. Welcome, Ms. Ober. Thank you for joining us.
I'm not on the Conservation Committee, though I am on the Zoning Board. Thank you, Marcia, for deciding to join us. But what I really wanted to ask is, how are all of the seats filled? And how are they going to determine who no longer is a full-time, is one of the 5 members and goes to an alternate status? Or does the city council do that? And I'll just take my answer. If you have an answer, I don't know. Thanks.
I'll look to the city manager for his thoughts on this.
Mr. Mayor, Dean Trefethen, our planning director, is on the call. So if Glenn, you can
Oh, terrific.
Unmute Dean, we can let Dean chime in.
Good evening. Yes, the Conservation Commission has discussed this matter. They have 1 member who is currently a regular full-time member who has volunteered to change their status to alternate. So that's how we'll take care of it immediately.
Thank you, Dean. Any other comments during this public session? Public hearing, excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, nobody else has raised their hand.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Seeing no further requests for comments, I would like to close this public hearing at 7:31 p.m. Moving along to number 15 right now, which is the mayor's report. And I have just a couple of things to speak about this evening, but certainly in light of what was discussed and addressed during the public comment portion, I think it might be an appropriate opportunity to address certainly some things that have gone on in our city that I certainly feel somewhat compelled to address. And if you bear with me for just a moment, I'd appreciate it. I feel motivated by certainly my own personal sense of social responsibility. But first of all, let me say, I know that our city of Laconia is a welcoming, inclusive, and vibrant community. I know it is a great place to live, a great place to work, and certainly a great place to raise a family. Unfortunately, though, our community is not insulated or immune from some of the ugly discourse that permeates our country. Certainly, as an elected office holder, I believe I have some responsibility to encourage discourse and also to remain vigilant in advocating for civility. And I must remain acutely aware of there's a fine line between our constitutional rights of free expression and speech that may use race or religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, able-bodiedness, or socioeconomic status to incite. I value public debate about politics and policy, even when there is very sharp disagreement. It's an essential element to a healthy democracy and certainly to a vibrant community here in Laconia. But I feel compelled to say that posting or reposting on social media content that espouses or amplifies racist and anti-Semitic content crosses the fine line. Racism and anti-Semitism in all its forms is abhorrent and an affront to our shared community values. Laconia is, and I hope it is known for, or I hope it's known as, a community where everyone, regardless of race, creed, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, able-bodiedness, age, or socioeconomic status, is welcomed and treated with fairness, kindness, and respect. I hope Laconia is and is known as a community opposed to any words or actions that undermine the dignity of any person. I don't believe this is a partisan political issue, and I hope we as a community take on the challenge to create a better dialogue around issues of race, anti-Semitism, and general prejudice. Indifference to these challenges will strain what binds us together as a community. In the coming weeks, I will be looking to our community to begin the process of creating a public dialogue, identifying issues that may divide us, and finding ways to bridge this divide. I hope Laconia will continue to be a community that prioritizes efforts to further educate ourselves and our children about the effects of prejudice. I appreciate and value that we are a community of different opinions and perspectives. I also appreciate and value that we can disagree in this community without being disagreeable. And I have no doubt that we can rise to the challenge and strengthen the bonds that make our community so special. I do believe that as fellow citizens in this community, we are all in this together, and we have so much that binds us, so many shared goals. And I hope we focus on that in the coming weeks, months, and years. Another issue in our community that is of great import to me, and I know to many of you, is homelessness. Our homelessness task force will be meeting again tomorrow. It will be a virtual meeting. And I don't have it in my calendar. I believe that we go from 4 to 5:30. I'm wondering if you can clarify that, Scott. I just want to, it's just not in the calendar in front of me here.
We have a time slot from 4 to 6 plugged in at this time.
4 to 6. This will be a virtual meeting. The Zoom information, which is certainly open to the public, and I encourage everyone to either come and participate, get involved in a work group, or just listen and hear some of the various ideas on homelessness here in the city, and as we try to take on a very complex issue. So that would be tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. That will conclude my remarks this evening. And I would like, this is the point where I would like to move council comments to. So 22 is now being moved to 15A. So councilors, I'll be looking to you if you have any comments at this point. Councilor Felch, yes, thank you.
Yes, I would like to echo your statement on racism and anti-Semitism. I've heard from several of my constituents, and this is no place for that. We represent, as counselors and elected officials, we represent all the people of Laconia. And I'm just going to make it brief. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, and this is how I feel, and I agree with the constituents that have reached out to me, and we can't let this happen in Laconia.
Councilor Hamel, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad that the people who are on the Zoom meeting spoke up, and I agree with them in all what they have said, and with you also, Mayor. This is not Laconia. I grew up here, went to school here, and we still live here. And Laconia, in my mind, has always been, like you said, a pretty welcoming place to everyone. And I think one of the good things that we can see that is true is Multicultural Day. That day has grown and grown and grown, and all ethnics are welcome there, obviously, and everybody from Laconia that goes and participates enjoys the heck out of it. And it's eye-opening to people who probably weren't exposed to different things, and to see all the great things of the different cultures, and especially all the different foods that are there. It's just a fantastic thing. And I think what was said was totally wrong, and I don't condone it at all. It's pretty despicable, but you know, as you said, I think Laconia has always been a welcoming place to all people, and I'm sure it's going to stay that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hamel. Councilor Susi.
I just want to say, when I look at Laconia, and as most of you know, I've been here for 50 plus years raising our family. And the thing is that we are a magnet of all different types of whatever people, ethnics, religions, everything as a vacation spot for the Northeast part of this country. Okay, everybody comes here. And I think it's awesome. I mean, I look at us being like a, I don't know if you would call it a melting pot, but I think it's fantastic that everybody comes here. I think it's great that we provide the service, we provide the community so they come and enjoy themselves, our vacation area, enjoy our restaurants and our lifestyle here. I think it's great. There's no reason to believe that Laconia isn't what Councilor Hamel said, as a place for everybody to come and enjoy. As you said, Mr. Mayor, we can sometimes have differences, but it's nothing of differences in these areas. These are not places to have differences, okay? We're all human beings, and nobody likes what was said. I don't condone it at all, and I think, I hope Ms. Johnson learns from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Susi. Councilor Cheney.
Thank you, Mayor. Like Councilor Felch, I've received, in my particular case, a substantial number of complaints from constituents. Actually, the most I've ever received. And I think it's important that all the comments that have been made by you, Mayor, and my fellow councilmen be taken to heart by the people of Laconia. I'm sorry this happened. I wished I could say that there was a mistake made, but I don't see how the comments and the images could be even remotely considered a mistake. I support the idea that this community categorically rejects that kind of discourse. What you think in your own home, I guess, is your own business, but to publicly repeat those kinds of things is unacceptable to me, and I think I can assure you to a substantial, probably near total number of folks. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cheney. Counselor Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also echo your comments. And the only thing I'd like to say is we're better than this and we know better. And I hope a lesson has been learned by a lot of people in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Haynes. Counselor Littman, yes.
I appreciate my fellow counselors' recognition of the concern and the hurt that these type of statements can cause. And I hope it's also for all of us a lesson that while we're trying to make a point, there's a point in which amplifying someone else's racist or hateful expressions or making them your own is really harmful to everybody, including the person that says it. And I'm appreciative of the fact that that it's recognized by the people I serve with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Littman. And I'm not surprised by this, but I take a great deal of pride in our city council and each one of you that we stand here united against these issues. And I think that speaks volumes, not only about the Laconia City Council, but about the community of Laconia. So. Moving on to agenda item number 16, which is committee reports. And I'll be looking to councilors if there are any committee reports that you'd like to present this evening. Councilor Hamel.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This evening at 6, we had a meeting of the Land and Buildings Committee. All members were present, and on the agenda was a discussion of the Laconia parking garage and also for the DPW lot. So we'll get into the parking garage first. We discussed 3 aspects of what we could possibly do with the garage. The first one is a complete rebuild of the whole structure. And the next one would be to take down the top level, make a roof out of the first level, and also have parking on that level. And the third choice would be to completely dismantle it, put a roof on it, and basically walk away from it and say it's not ours anymore. But there was also another step that was put in, and it would be to, let's see if we can negotiate to buy the whole building, and that would give us other options to do also. So as a discussion went on amongst the 3 that were there, we kind of eliminated the taking down the top level and just using the first level for parking. So some of the things we should be looking at for this project would be, and I told the committee members that we weren't going to make any kind of a vote tonight on our aspects, that we were going to discuss it or think about it over the next couple of weeks amongst ourselves. But also I'd like to have the city council members start to think about this. There's a finite time on we need to do something with the garage. It is starting to be in disrepair. We're spending a lot of money every year, which really is doing nothing for it. We're up to roughly $100,000 that we spent in the last probably 4 years or so. And so we need to decide what we want to do with it. We can't wait much longer. Some of the things that we need to remember with our decisions we make is, what will Laconia look 10, 15, 20 years down the road, 25 years down the road? What do we think Laconia is going to be? And that, and that will, help us with the decision on what we do at the garage. The other aspect is, and this means a lot to me, is we've been discussing this parking garage for over 10 years now, and we were kind of hand-tied by us not owning the retail space and only the parking garage above. So what do? We own basically the roof above it, so we have to maintain that. So the part of that is if we do a complete repair on it, we're going to pass down in the next 15 to 30 years, however long the garage lasts, to the next council that's going to be sitting at the table, the same problem that we've been going through ourselves for the past 10 years or so of how do we fix it, what makes sense, where we don't own the whole structure. So to me, that's a big thing. I myself don't want to pass down a problem to a future council like what we've been trying to go through now. The Public Works Director and I had a walkthrough of the garage with a gentleman from the Turner Group in Concord several weeks ago. And they are very familiar with parking garages. That's what they do. They built the new one in Concord, and now they're also rehabilitating the, I guess you can call it the legislature garage that's on Store Street. They're in the process of redoing that. And so he walked through the whole thing, and Wes also gave them all the material that we have documented on the structure, what steel is rotting and the ramps and everything. And with his walkthrough, he wrote us back saying that he felt that with some thoughts of what we want to do with the building, that the building is rehabable, all three, both floors. So he feels it can be repaired. So right now we kind of have, I would say, rough costs. Probably the closest one would be the rehabilitation of both decks, which we're looking at about $5 million. If we were to rehabilitate the second deck and remove the top deck, we're looking at probably 3.2 million. And to deconstruct it, we're looking at around $2 million. So those are the options that we have right now. The prices that we have here are a little old, so that could vary. So I guess what I want the rest of the council is to, over the next few weeks or so, to think about this, which direction you'd like to go. The parking garage holds roughly 250 cars. So if we deconstruct it, obviously we'll be losing that. We did gain the parking lot over at St. Joe's, which added roughly 80 some odd cars there, 84 cars, I believe. When we walked through it with the gentleman from the Turner Group, there was probably, I'd say maybe a dozen cars up there. That was all. We haven't used the top deck for, oh gosh, I don't know, 7 to 10 years, I think. We haven't even used that at all. So, we need to think about all these things. And we're going to have another meeting of the Land and Buildings Committee, probably the last meeting of this month, and have them come back and kind of give us their thoughts on it, and then we'll present that to the council, and then let the council as a whole decide on which avenue we want to go. So that's kind of it on the parking garage. Is there any questions on that?
I see Councilor Susie has his hand up.
Okay, all my screen's frozen, so
I can hear you and see you. So
okay.
Councilor Hamel, thank you very much. One of the things, and as you know, not being part of the committee, but still being very interested in that whole situation there, how we should look at not just the parking garage, but we should really take a look at how that's going to work for the complete downtown district. Okay, we understand the Colonial Theater, St. Joe's parking, but that garage has such an impact just on the traffic flow going up and down the main street, you might say, or Route 106, whichever way you want to describe it. And you know, the big horseshoe that we have. So I just hope that as we move forward, we get a chance to take all of that into consideration. I know we don't have full control over the downtown, but that's going to have such a significant impact coming into the city, as that's pretty much the first thing that you see. And we don't want people to leave the city, but as they, you know, would allow shopping, as you said, the downtown, the lower floor, we have no control over. That won't change if we just rehab it. Okay. So I just want to make sure that we look at the entire picture, not just the garage itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, we are looking at the entire picture. We do have some drawings that were made several years ago of the complete upgrade of the whole building. You know, with the elevator and the staircase moved outside and put into a glass structure. So, you know, it could be, people can see that, be seen inside, and it make it a lot more friendly for people leaving the garage. And you know, it's all new LED lighting, new security systems, and dress up outside. So there is a drawing on that, and you know, maybe Wes or Scott could pull that out so we could see it and kind of review it. But you know, I think if thoughts are that we can make, if we take that down, make the street two-way all the way through, I don't see how we could do that. We just spend a ton of money on that bridge, and it's configured for what we have right now. So, I mean, I guess anything's possible if you want to spend money, but, you know, I mean, that's kind of, you're going to redo something we just did a few years ago. You muted.
Councilor Susie, you went on to mute.
And I agree with you, Councilor Hamel. We don't want to keep kicking the can down the road. I just want to make sure that we look at and as you said, look at the entire downtown area and see that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor
Thank you,
Susie.
too.
Councilor Cheney. Excuse me. Councilor Cheney.
Well, I just wanted to bring up something else that you know, we need to consider. And when Councilor Susie brought up about the Colonial, with the condos that are going in there, the city will be dedicating so many parking spaces for those condo units. So those will be permanent spaces that will be leased by the condo people, and those will be taken out of the inventory of what we have. So, you know, that's another aspect of this also to look at.
Councilor Cheney?
Councilor Cheney?
Yes, Councilor Hamel, I have a question and a comment. My question was, what was the cost to remove all of it and just re-roof it?
Well, I don't know if we actually have an exact cost on that part of it. It would probably be, well, to deconstruct it, that's what you'd be looking at. You would completely tear down the garage that's there. You'd leave the retail structure underneath and put a roof. And according to that, it's roughly $2 million, but I don't know how accurate that figure is.
I'm sure it'll go north.
I'm sure.
And my comment is, and it's been mentioned by both of you, I think we want to consider the Colonial Theater. I have great hopes for what that's going to do, and I don't think we can move fast enough to do anything before the Colonial has started to perform. So I guess as part of all of this, I hope we'll also take into account, I think you mentioned the condos and the theater itself. I know in Manchester, people walk some distance to theater down there, and it's the parking is a premium there like it is here. So I hope we have time to see what the impact of the Colonial may be before we
go too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Part of the other problem is the amount of money that we're investing in it just to keep it the way it is. As the years go on, that amount of money will just increase. And Wes kind of hinted to the cost of roughly $50,000 maybe next year or the year after. And it could end up that within the next 3 years, we might have to start replacing structural steel to keep it upright, I guess, for now. And so that's why, we need to decide on a course so that DPW will know and that we can kind of get the ball rolling on what we want to do. So that's kind of it right now for the parking garage. Kind of a lot to think about for everybody and how it will impact the city in a good way or a bad way. So, it's kind of like it's not a good situation we're in on that structure. There any other? Yes, Henry.
In terms of the life of the, taking it down one level and doing the repairs and what have you, what was Turner's opinion on the life of that type of work?
Well, he really didn't give a time, but for the whole thing, if we went through and redid the whole thing, then you'd be looking at roughly 30 years. So I would guess that if we took that top down and redid the roof and whatever steel that would need to be replaced, I think you could use that same time frame.
And you wouldn't view that as passing the problem to another council if you got that kind of life out of it, would you?
Well, I mean, if we redid the whole thing and got the 30 years out of it, and 30 years from now, they got the same situation, I think that's passing it on to another council. And they could have to do the same thing we're doing now, is, doing yearly repairs to keep it open.
Really, any parking structure would have that kind of issue for it effectively. So, I mean,
Yep,
I guess
absolutely.
The other alternative is really removing it altogether and coming up with somehow additional parking.
Yes. Yep. And then that could be one of the things we look at, is taking the whole thing down. But I just think that we have to come to some kind of conclusion here, probably within the next month or two, so that planning can start whatever way we go. Obviously, Scott needs to know which way we're headed, because the next budget will be coming up. I'm sure he's probably already started working on it. And we would probably need some kind of seed money for engineering, architectural, to get the ball rolling no matter which way we go.
I think you're thinking about it with respect to, the time's come to take some definitive action as opposed to just keeping going.
Yeah, I just don't think we can sit on it anymore. We sat on it for quite a while. To be truthful, I didn't schedule a committee meeting for quite a while because we're, working on the property over at St. Joe's. So that kind of gives us some leeway of what direction we could go. Maybe in the future you could build a small parking garage there. I don't know. It'd be out of the way, that's for sure. So anyway, it's something for everybody to think about for the next few weeks or a month. And is there any other questions on the parking garage? Okay, so the other thing we got into was DPW, as far as starting to look for replacement of the building that's there. The gentleman from the Turner Group went there with us and walked the lot. And so basically he said that he thinks a building could be put there. We all know that there's problems with the subsoil there, but he said you don't need to worry about it too much, that those are things can be addressed. They're being addressed over at Irwin's now on what they're doing there, because they're expanding their bays for their repairs, and they're shoring up the soil underneath. And he said that we could do the same thing at the DPW. So to make that one kind of short is right now, Director Anderson is coming up with a plan, like a plot plan, to see what kind of building would fit there for their needs for the next 30 years, say, what's the building going to look like, and how is it going to fit on what we have there. And hopefully I believe he will have a meeting with the workers there and have some input from them on what makes their life easier also, as far as their work and how, the barn should be set up. So we still have quite a bit to do with that as far as coming up with the specifications for what is needed and how it will fit on that lot. Any questions about that? Yes, Councilor Susie.
Is that the same lot they're on now, Bob?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I thought they were looking at some other location. That's the reason why I asked.
Well, there is other locations, if possible. I don't know if land's available up on the Parade Road area. We do have city-owned property south of the Ice Arena on Route 107. But I think what we're looking at is how can we make it central still to Laconia so that the equipment can get out and be on the sidewalks and streets right away. The lot where they are now is a perfect place, but the ground isn't very suitable. But like the guy from the Turner Group said, we can take care of that problem there. We just need to find out is what their expectation of their building of the future will look like, and will it fit there.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure it was the same location. That's all.
Yeah, right now it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, Mayor, I'm all done.
Thank you, Councilor Hamel. Thanks for your work on this issue as well. So do we have any other committee reports this evening? How about liaison reports, which would be number 17 on our agenda? Any liaison reports? Councilor Cheney.
I just like to advise the council that the Pro QA dispatch program, which we funded last year, has been installed, and it's sort of a technical thing to try and describe, but I'd like to suffice it to say that the company that produces Pro QA is an internationally used program or process, and I'm really pleased that the chief and the commission and the dispatch folks at the PD have embraced it. I think it will show an improvement in service over time. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Cheney. Any other liaison reports? Councilor Haynes. You are muted.
As you may have read at the end of the week, the Heritage Commission denied a demolition permit for 76 Lakeside Avenue. The commission felt that this building is worth saving. On Thursday, we will meet with the owners to see if this can be resolved.
Thank you, Councilor Haynes. Any other liaison reports? Seeing none, I'll move on to item number 18 on our agenda, which is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. This would be the appropriate time for citizens to weigh in on any items that are on this evening's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, no attendees have raised their hand.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Let's move along now to number 19, which is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To start off with a little bit of a general thought for our citizens. Obviously, we're all seeing an increase in the spike of COVID on a number of fronts and a number of buildings, some clusters in the area and the region. And we just are continuing to encourage people to perform as many transactions as they can within the city online. If you need help, there are a number of numbers you can call from my office at 527-1270 to the clerk's office. Public Works, different departments can walk you through a number of transactions that can occur online. While we love to see your faces, and especially at the holidays, the more folks that we can keep distant at this point keeps our staff safe and keeps you safe. You know, a couple of examples of things that folks may not think of. You know, if we have COVID through some of our employees in Public Works, for instance, and we're down a plow route or two, how does that affect our ability to handle storms? We've had a couple of issues with trash pickup. We've heard from some people last week that normally the trash crew, which is a contracted service through Casella, they usually don't come through until noon or 1 o'clock, and I get my recycling out in the late morning. It's never a problem. Well, Casella, like other businesses, is not immune to some staff shortages right now for various reasons, and they are juggling crews in order to serve the residents of Laconia. And now sometimes they're starting crews earlier or shifting people around, routes around, and all of a sudden your trash or your recycling pickup occurs earlier in the day, and you're not prepared for it as a resident. So we're asking people just to be thinking big picture, thinking how you can help keep everybody safe. City Hall is open. We do require social distancing. We have a greeter in the lobby. Tax bills do not have to be paid in person. They can be dropped in a Dropbox slot on the side of the building. If you leave both parts of your bill, we'll stamp it in a receipt and mail it back to you. People can do activities with credit cards on which there is a service fee, but there's also another way to do it that basically is a charge of a little less than $1 for drafting dollars to pay your bills out of your checking account. So a number of things we can help you with. We just encourage you to look online, look in the Friday newsletter that we put out at City Hall. It goes electronically every Friday if you're not signed up for it. You can also find it on the website, but a number of tips on how you can accomplish what it is you need to do. And really for these next few months while we kind of turn the curve on this. So just a big picture message there. Really proud of our staff. Our staff does a great job across the city in all departments, and appreciate their efforts and creativity and wearing numerous hats in these unique times. And they certainly appreciate the support of the mayor and council for all we do across the city with the employees. Moving on to the financial and operational trends report, which is included in your packet this month and starts on page 34. The first item is the building permit value report. And while I've been talking all year about inflation running very low, and that's one component of our tax cap calculation, the building permit value is at $28 million year to date. And again, this is the assessing year. So we still have December all the way up until March 31st to be reported, but we're at 28 million. A year ago at this time, we were at 12.5 million. And for all of last year, the figure was 17.4 million. So we're already 10 or $11 million roughly ahead of the pace where we were for all of last year. We've seen a couple of things drive the report this month in particular. There was one building permit that has been pulled for what I'll refer to as the Barton's condominium project. So one building permit has been pulled. There are a total of 4 buildings slated to go up there. So there is still more growth, if you will, in the building permit value there. Another one is the Brady Sullivan development. I think the street is being called Mark Drive, and it's the one out past the Merrill Fay Ice Arena and Frank Bean Road in there on the right. And they have pulled a number of building permits in the last couple of months, and this month in particular, to construct the houses. It probably end up being 15 or 20 houses or so. I may be off by a couple, but I think that's the ballpark in that new development there. So, and we're seeing some just single permits pulled throughout the city, and as well as some renovations and some upgrades. So very positive news there, as this continues to be a desirable place for people to want to live and build and invest their dollars. You can see the fire and rescue calls next on page 34, and also the police calls on the next page. Nothing really jumps out as being unique there. Moving down to the public assistance data, the city welfare or relief. I've stated before, a number of programs have been put into place this year through the COVID pandemic to help be a safety net for folks. So there's been limits on people being evicted or home foreclosure. There's been stays of utilities being shut off. Some of those are starting to end right now, and there's potential for a little bit of a gap right here in December. And there's some concern about what that may do for welfare in the coming weeks. So we will continue to monitor that. I know there are still some ongoing discussions in Washington, so we'll watch what happens there about what programs might come out. As I emailed you all a week or two ago, I believe, the city and the county in 2 COVID CDBG, Community Development Block Grant applications specific for some of these social service agencies and support services related to the pandemic of people's needs for housing and food and clothing and medicine. We're very successful between the county application and the city application that really, Glenn Smith and his staff took the lead on and put those applications in and spearheaded, and collectively I'll ballpark the number at somewhere between $700,000 and $800,000 in CDBG grants were awarded, subject to Governor Council approving them, which is usually a pretty routine matter. And that'll really be able to assist with some of the items that I mentioned for shelter, fuel, food, and other types of aid for folks who may be struggling through the pandemic. So good work by Glenn and his team there. When we turn to page 35, the second page of the report, our property tax collection is looking strong. Our bills just went out right around the Thanksgiving timeframe, a little bit earlier, with a due date toward the end of December. So we'll continue to monitor how property tax collections look as we get through December and into the first of the year. Motor vehicle registrations, we're running a little over 43%. To be on target, we would be at around 41.6 or 41.7% right now. So we are running still strong there. The overtime report, the next report, again, this is going to be a little bit skewed as we know we've had some overtime due to COVID related items, extra details, shift coverages, those types of things. Again, we were allocated just short of $400,000 through the CARES fund, through the Gopher. And there's also some dollars available through a separate FEMA program that we are taking full advantage of and tracking. So we will square those out as we get further into this fiscal year. But there may be some things that jump out on you as to why they're high, but there will be some reimbursement dollars, or we've already received some reimbursement dollars that will help tie that all out. Page 4 of the report, you can see the impact fee revenues. Again, we start to see a little bit more of certificates of occupancy issued, and that's when you see some of those dollars kick in. So fiscal year to date, we've done about $12,500 in impact fees. I know in one of the conversations we had with the Finance Committee in reviewing the internal control policy, which is later on in your agenda packet tonight, a question came up about revisiting the impact fees. So staff and I have taken a look at that, and I've had a conversation with Councilor Lippman as Chair of Finance on maybe an approach that we'll be looking to bring forward to you in the very near future. So be on the lookout for that. You can see on page 5 all of our current balances and all of our reserve and trust accounts there. The TIF balances for downtown Lakeport and the Weirs are all current. Boat taxes, again, running on a fiscal year, running slightly ahead of last year's pace in particular, but significantly ahead of any of the prior years when you look at those numbers. And the EMS billing data is there as we do for you every month. The last page of the report, you can see we have started our winter season. So we do have our first entry in the month of November for a little bit of freezing rain, which, if memory serves me, was happening the morning of Election Day. So that's where we are. And I'll stop there and happy to take any questions anyone may have.
Scott, just one question, and it just happened to catch my eye, which is the TIF financing balances. Weirs TIF is in the negative. Can you just explain that for me?
Yeah, so several years ago, great question, when we were doing the improvements in the weirs, rather than just go in and do kind of the nuts and bolts of street drainage and sidewalks, the desire was to, really take it a step further and set it up for years to come. So the council made an investment in doing things like the underground utilities and doing the concrete sidewalks rather than asphalt, and doing the decorative lamps and some of those types of items. And we broke it down into two components. One was supported by the general fund. One portion of the bond was supported by the general fund, and the other portion of the bond for the nice to haves was supported by the Weirs TIF district. The Weirs TIF district was only a couple of years old at that time, and we always knew that it wasn't going to be able to support, we'll refer to it as its share of the bond payment right out of the gate, and that there'd be kind of a due to, due from that we would track internally and eventually charge it back. I don't have that pro forma in front of me, but if memory serves me correctly, and I can pull it out and share it with all of you again, we thought it would be probably about a 5 to 6 year, maybe a 7-year time frame where the TIF district would have had enough growth in there and enough tax revenue to be able to support its full share of the bond, and then additionally start to repay the due to, if you will, to the general fund. So that is not unexpected. And I believe last time we looked at it, we were actually running a little bit ahead of some of our conservative pro forma projections. So we can revisit that and get you an update, but I am confident that we are running ahead on that. And that was definitely a known quantity when we started that process.
All right, thanks, Scott. And as it's not included on your report, but I'm wondering if you are, and I wish I had tipped you off to this earlier, but I think you've got the essential information at your fingertips. That is the state's use of the Doobie Building. Just wondering if maybe you can update us on current status, approximate numbers, and things like that.
Yeah, it's ebbed and flowed, and it had been kind of quiet after the initial start. And then I believe I'm accurate in saying that we hit a high in residency, if you will, there probably about 2 weeks ago, where I believe the number was 13 people were being housed there at the time. And I probably heard that number on a Monday or a Tuesday in the early part of the week, and was told that by the Friday, 7 of them had either met their quarantine or came back negative, or whatever the case may have been, and 7 of them were expected to leave by that Friday. So I'm not saying that number is accurate as of this morning. It's not something I check, but I believe in that 13 person number. Seems to have kind of been our high water mark, and especially since this has been ongoing, I think probably all the way back to April timeframe, if memory serves me correct.
Yes, and as far as you know, we had a memorandum of understanding, I think, with the state through Director Plummer at the time. Just as far as you know, the state has still essentially been compliant with all those terms, correct?
To everything I know, they've had the appropriate professional staffing there at all times. Anytime there has been any occupant of the building, they have paid for a Laconia police detail to be there 24/7. And whenever possible, they're procuring, meals, snacks, whatever it might be from local establishments.
And as far as you know, the folks are when they are cleared and ready for release from the Doobie Building, are going back to the communities where they originated from.
Absolutely. And speaking with Chief Canfield, we haven't run into any issues of folks trying to leave or trying to engage and remain in Laconia, and no concerns about any type of public safety issues with this operation.
Thanks, Scott. Any other questions for councilors of Scott? Councilor Genie, yes.
Muted.
I had unmuted. Thank you, Mayor. Scott, I have a couple of items. One, I'd ask if you could have whoever, I suspect DPW, but someone, look at the intersection of North Main and Oak, the light there. A number of times I've now recently noted that people turning left trigger the change of the lights. even when there's nobody there. And I think there's a means to add how much time it takes for a vehicle to be over the sensor before it triggers a light change. If somebody could just look and see, and you let us know whether that could be fixed. Second, and I don't know why this struck me, I guess because I keep looking at the skate park. Can you get us at some point in the near future, I doubt tonight, some information about where we stand with the Indian and or its replacement? And then finally, I have a question about our Comcast contract. I read recently in the Union Leader that Comcast is announcing that starting sometime after the first of the year, they're going to start choking internet access or speed, I think, at a certain point. I think they said 1.2 terabytes, but whatever it is, at this time when so many people are at home, working from home, it seems to me a poor time to be looking to choke access. But I didn't know whether our contract had any provision in it for internet, or is it just cable?
Well, thank you for the questions. Yes, we will address the traffic signal and get back to you on what we find there. The Indian, I think the last update we had a couple of months ago, maybe in our projects report, the ownership of the Winnipesaukee Muskrats is also involved with some fundraising and the restoration of the Indian at O-Pee-Chee Park. They had taken a number of photographs while the statue was still standing, and there's a 3D fabrication plastic, I'm going to call it a, almost like a fancy Lego type of company that will recreate this and bring it in pieces and have it reinstalled in something that's weatherproof and a little bit lightweight or lighter weight, and be placed there. And through the COVID, some of that has been delayed, but I know that the production is occurring. And I think the ownership is hopeful that in conjunction with this upcoming baseball season with the Muskrats, that they will be doing some kind of installation and unveiling on that. And on the Comcast, you are correct. Our franchise agreement with Comcast or Atlantic Broadband is strictly for cable services. It has nothing to do, even though they're sometimes bundled, it has nothing to do with telephone or internet. I did happen to see the same article you did a few weeks back about the amount of bandwidth or download speeds and those types of things. And yes, you're absolutely correct. There's a lot more people and students working remotely, and the demand is there. So our city franchise agreement has no say over that. I would just certainly urge consumers that whoever they're discussing with for their internet and or telephone needs is that they ask those questions and make sure that whoever their service is going to come from is appropriately sized for them. But there's not a city role in anything with a franchise agreement other than cable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cheney. Councilor Hamill.
Yeah, two questions, Scott. One is there's a growing number of telephone poles that are duplicated in the city now. And I believe Comcast is adding another 157 poles that are being replaced or in that area. Driving around, you see quite a few where the cables have been moved and they're still there probably a year or 2 years later. Is there anything we can do to kind of push some buttons to either get these companies to move their wires onto the new poles and remove the poles that the wires have already been moved?
That's a great question, and there is a shared system, and I know Wes is on the call, and he'll probably cringe that I'm butchering what it does, but there's a shared notification system between all of the utilities about when a certain utility has moved wires off the pole, and it goes into a communications auto, work order type of thing that basically tells the next company, you're it, you're next. You are right. Comcast coming in is is putting some new poles in certain areas in order to be able to handle the additional wire load coming in. So we will be working with all utilities to try to move this along as expeditiously as possible. We don't believe that we as a city are necessarily holding up the moving of wires sometimes, but we do have fire alarm wires on numerous poles. And when you look at our budget and or equipment or staff time, we don't have any dedicated funds there for, having a subcontractor or paying staff to go out and be moving wires when it's our turn. We've got one bucket truck in the city that DPW uses regularly. The fire department is able with one of their staff to get it when not in use by DPW and some odd hours here and there to go do that. But yes, we understand the problem and definitely we know that if additional poles are coming in with Comcast, we'll be staying on top of that. I know it's never as quick as anybody likes, but I think this new notification system, I'm actually copied on the emails every time I see one come in, and it kind of says, to the next utility company, tag, you're red. And ultimately, if some companies are not being responsive, we could certainly go to the Public Utilities Commission and make complaints there as well.
Okay. Does that mean that we have a substantial amount of poles where our fire alarm wires needs to be moved and it hasn't?
I don't know if it's substantial, and I'm not sure if they're in all areas where new poles need to go in. I know we moved a lot of it down, Court Street, when we did the Court Street project. You think of it basically, where do we have fire alarm wires? And they're usually in the more commercial districts and running to either firehouse. But in some cases, if you look at Blueberry Lane, I know we've got fire alarm wires coming down Holman Street and Linwood Avenue on that, but they're coming, or I guess not Linwood at that point, but Holman. And they're coming there because that was the route they were wired to handle some of those multi-unit apartment buildings. So it's just not commercial that's being focused on. So they are in a number of parts of the city. One of the things that Chief Biotti and his team had been working on, and I know this is probably near and dear to Councilor Cheney's heart, is we're working on a program to start doing away with the fire alarm wires and weaning people off of that and going over an appropriate time frame to their own alarm system and giving people notice as to when this is going to occur and give them, options as to what types of service companies are compatible with what we'll need here in Laconia. And there would be a bit of an investment originally for some of these businesses. So we don't want to, spring it on them all at once. But certainly if they're not having to pay for an alarm box fee to the city every year, there is some payback, but it would be a monthly monitoring charge like people may have for their businesses or their homes for security or other types of alarms. So we are going to be doing that. We've looked at a couple of communities that have kind of done a phase out option, and they've identified quadrants in the city and they've targeted to do 20 or 30% a year. So you get to that point over a period of 3 or 4 or 5 years. And again, we had started on this, and I had sat in on at least one meeting with one of the vendors who was explaining, I think, what they were doing in Rhode Island with a project. And again, the COVID came in and all focus shifted elsewhere. But it's definitely on our radar, and I'm hopeful that within 5 years or less, we'll be out of the fire alarm wire business.
Okay. Is there any way to ask them if they could come and take the poles out there that the wires have already been moved on and they're just sitting there?
We'll continue to make the ask. I know sometimes they're looking for a critical mass. So if they're getting a crew to come in the area, they know they want to be able to pull. I don't know what the workload is on any given day, but 20 or 30 poles while they're here versus sending a crew out and pulling 5. But we will certainly stay on them. And I believe Wes has done a very good job in trying to stay on them as well. It's one of those thorn in our side issues. And I trust me, I feel your pain on it when I see them. And I believe Councilor Cheney one time counted the poles for me and gave me an exact number as he went down Parade Road or Roller Coaster Road or the combination thereof.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing I have, I've received several calls, and I've driven that area several times anyway. But when you're coming down Beacon West and rounding the curve right there by Sawyer's jewelry store, and you look to the right because you're at a stop sign now, there's the island there with the flowers. If Parks and Rec could go there and trim those down, they're all dead anyway. But there's some bushes there that are quite high, and you can't see the traffic coming up Main Street from Court and Main. You have to really stick your nose way out there to go around it and to be able to see. So if they could just trim those down for the winter, that would be greatly appreciated by a lot of people, I think.
We will get that addressed.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hamel. Any other questions for the city manager? Seeing none, we can move along now to new business under 20A, which is a request to appoint Amber Flanders as Ward 4 Supervisor of the Checklist. The current Ward 4 Supervisor of the Checklist submitted his resignation on November 5th, 2020. New Hampshire RSA 669:64 requires that vacancies in the Board of Supervisors of the Checklist be filled within 45 days. Looking for a motion to appoint Amber Flanders as Ward 4 Supervisor of the Checklist for a term expiring at the end of November 2021. So made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, go right ahead, Councilor Haynes. You're on mute.
Amber Flanders shadowed the former, which will be the former supervisor of the checklist. So she's very good at what she does, and she's been well trained. So I would highly recommend this motion.
Thank you, Councilor Haynes. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And thank you very much, Amber Flanders, for your willingness to serve. Moving on to item number 20B, which is authorization of boat dealers to act as agents for the city of Laconia. The following boat dealers have been operating as agents for the city in the collection of boat fees for the last several years. The state is requiring these dealers to show evidence of a surety bond in order to authorize them to collect fees for the city and state. The city can cover these dealers under our current bonding insurance and at no additional cost, provided they are authorized annually by the city council to act as agents. The fiscal impact of this, in fiscal year 2020, the city received approximately $94,000 in boat registration fees collected between these dealers and the city clerk's office. It's the staff's recommendation that the council authorize the following boat dealers to act as agents for the city: August Bay Marina, Thurston's Marina, Channel Marine, Irwin Marine, Lakeport Landing, Watermark Marine, Winnisquam Marine. This report was submitted by City Clerk Cheryl Hebert, and so I'll be looking for 2 motions. The first is to allow the renewal of the boat agent agreement with the state of New Hampshire Department of Motor Vehicles with the city of Laconia and boat dealers. So made by Councilor Hamel, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Felch.
Yes, I'd like to note, and the change probably has to be made. Channel Marine is no longer Channel Marine, it's Winnie Marine, and it's owned by the same company as Winnisquam Marine.
I have not been told that.
We will note that, and I think with your motion, if you allow the city to adjust the name and that's appropriate under new ownership, we will certainly address that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Felch. Any further comments on this motion? I'm sorry. Did we get a first and second on that?
We did.
We did, okay. Without seeing any further requests for discussion or questions, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. The second motion I'll be looking for is to allow the city clerk to sign the boat agent agreement on behalf of the city of Laconia. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Thank you, councilors and Madam Clerk. Moving along to item number 20C, which is a request for no parking on Wentworth Cove near the area beach. This was a report. I'm not sure if a number of people, I'm not sure if every councilor had received an email in regards to this, but certainly if Wes is with us, I'll allow him to introduce this issue to the council, and maybe Councilor Felch, you can fill in some of the gaps when we get to that point.
We received a request to make a area on Wentworth Cove in the vicinity of the housing development's private beach, no parking. I looked at the area and determined where the best area would be to limit the ability to park around the beach, but still let the residents have guests park on the street. And that's what we proposed. I believe Councilmember Felch sent it to the members of the association for comments, if I'm correct.
Okay, so just for a discussion sake, let me go through the staff report here. Councilor Felch received a request from a representative of the residents of Wentworth Cove Road to make a section of the road no parking due to the number of residents driving to and parking on the road to use Wentworth Cove's private beach. The properties in the Wentworth Cove Road area have private beach rights to the beach on the lot 166-269-37. Due to the number of cars parking on the road by the beach's lot, it makes it difficult for other vehicles and pedestrians to pass by the parked vehicles. Public Works, as Wes indicated, proposes that a no parking area on both sides of the road be designated to help control this problem. Public Works proposes that on the odd number side of the road, that no parking area begins at the southern boundary of 65 Wentworth Cove Road to the northern boundary of 91 Wentworth Cove Road. On the even side of the road, it should extend from the southern boundary of 66 Wentworth Cove Road to the northern boundary of 88 Wentworth Cove Road. So Wes, I guess what you're saying here is that it's staggered from one side of the road to the other. Is that correct?
Correct, and we do that because we try not to put the no parking signs in front of a residential house, so
Sure.
they don't have to look at it.
Right, exactly. The estimated cost to install the necessary signs to implement this no parking area is $400. The cost of the signs will come from the Public Works regulatory sign budget. It's recommended that the City Council approve the residents' request to designate both sides of Wentworth Cove Road a no parking area in the vicinity of the private beach. So what we'd be looking for here is a motion that the City Council approve designating a no parking area on both sides of Wentworth Cove Road. On the odd number side of the road, the no parking area begins at the southern boundary of 65 Wentworth Cove Road to the northern boundary of 91 Wentworth Cove Road. On the even side of the road, it should extend from the southern boundary of 66 Wentworth Cove Road to the northern boundary of 88 Wentworth Cove Road. That motion made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor, I knew you were going to do that, Councilor Susie. I knew you were thinking about seconding that. Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion on this issue? Councilor Lippman.
Yes. Could someone please review what the noticing was on this? I'm not against it. I just want to make sure we've properly noticed and given anybody who might object to it a chance to be able to raise their concerns.
I believe Mr. Mayor, I believe Councilor Felch reached out to the residents and had an association contact, and I know he forwarded me some emails that I forwarded to all of you. So I think there were 4 or 5 emails of support of this no parking, but I think maybe Councilor Felch can add a little bit more background for you.
Yes. I've heard from several of the people that live in the area, seen pictures. There's actually an attorney that reached out to me in the beginning that represents them. She's actually on the Zoom meeting. If we would like to hear from her, I'm sure she would let us know. But a lot of the pictures I've seen, the housing, I mean, the lawns and stuff are getting torn up. Plus, when they're parked on both sides of the road, it would be an emergency hazard for emergency vehicles to get through. If there's anything else I can answer for your questions, let me know.
I guess my only issue is whether we've noticed it properly. Is my only, I read all the emails that came in and understand the concern. I just want to make sure we procedurally have it done correctly.
Tony, I just have one question.
Are all the houses on Wentworth Cove Road part of that same association? If you know, Councilor Felch?
I'm not positive, but I believe specifically in that area, yes.
Okay. Councilor Susie, go right ahead.
Right. Tony, I have one question. It's the no parking for all cars. It's not, I thought I read somewhere that somebody had said something that residents would still be allowed to park on the road. That's not true, is it?
No, that would be for all cars. And
Okay.
also, I did discuss with several of them, including the attorney, that it would be beneficial if they put some type of signage up in their access area that says private, no trespassing or that type of thing. So that should help as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Susie. Councilor Hamel.
Yes, thank you. I guess the question might be for Tony, I believe. So if you put the parking in, what I'm looking at is there's 6 lots that this is going to affect for the no parking area. So I guess my question is, if we do that in front of those 6 houses, is it going to move the problem down the road, that they're going to be parking in a different area and walking? You're just going to shift the problem. Can you answer that in any way?
Well, that's a good question. That's one of the reasons I asked them to put signage up saying that it is private.
Is the problem that people that don't even live in that area are going there and using their private beach?
Yes, that's the problem.
So why doesn't the association have somebody there at the beach that says, where do you live?
Well, they don't have an association.
In that association area, then they tell them to leave.
They don't have an association.
There is no association there.
No, they just have the right of way.
Who does?
The residents in that area.
But I thought you said you spoke to someone of the association.
No, I didn't say of the association, of the people.
So it is that place deeded to these people? I mean, that they can use, or how does that work?
I believe that's the case.
I mean, can anybody go there? I mean, is it possible that anybody's allowed to go there?
I don't believe so. You could talk Regina Nadeau, who's the attorney.
Yeah, Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but why don't we, I see Regina's got her hand raised. Maybe she can shed some light on this for us.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Very well. Thank you, Regina.
Thank you. Yes, I can just give you a little bit of background. This area is fairly congested, and it's the result of multiple re-subdivisions of land in Wentworth Cove. So we had a subdivision in the 1940s that ran to the mid-1960s. We had another one in the mid-1960s to the 70s. And we had one from the 1970s to the late 70s. And it's what we now refer to as a type of funnel development, where a lot of deeded beach rights are given to a small strip of land. And what happened over the course of the years with the three different developers, they never formed an association. And they never conveyed out the underlying ownership interest in the 20-foot strip of land. So as a result, it's just about legally impossible to force these 60 some odd lot owners to create an association. And there's no intent to deprive those easement holders use and enjoyment of their easement rights. But what's happening is the easement rights don't include the right to park in the roadway and park trailers in the roadway. And the public is bringing in large vehicles, parking trailers halfway on the road, halfway in the lawns, and leaving the trailers there sometimes for full weekends while they take off on the lake. So the people that you've received letters from are predominantly the people in front of whose property this no parking zone would be. So it's not a question of, they're the ones that have asked for it. It's not an attempt to restrict any easement holders' rights to use the right of way. It's just an attempt to control the traffic that's along this designated area. As far as what happens with controlling the access, once we consider this phase one, phase two, then we want to put, a sign out there that says that this is private parking for private easement holders. We were reluctant to do that at first because there is no association, but I've researched the law, and I think any easement holder has a right to post the sign. So again, there's not going to be any attempt to restrict, legitimate easement holders' rights to use the thing. It's more to get in the old days, we used to have kids that used to play in the street. That's great. But now what we've got is a huge parking lot where people are playing music, blocking traffic, dressing and undressing in the road, leaving their garbage in the road and on the lawns. And so we just need to get it reclassified from a public parking lot to a pass-through area.
So if I may ask the question, if we restrict in front of these 6 lots, I guess my question is going to be what stops the people from parking further down the road, and we have the same problem, it's just pushed to a different area?
I don't know. Initially, I had hoped we would have a longer area. But, I'm hoping that with the combined signage that we want to put up and the no parking signs, we've got people that walk a distance from their lots to get to there. I don't know that we'd be pushing it. I think if I look at the tax map, I've actually got an excerpt here. I don't know how far around the corner this roadway goes, but it's a deep bend. I think, my hope is that it's going to reduce the traffic. if it proved to be a problem, if it proved to create, exacerbate issues elsewhere, then maybe that could be addressed by expanding the area going forward. But certainly we don't want to create added problems for other people, but it looks like the people that are in this direct vicinity are really taking the brunt of this activity.
Where's the access to the beach? Is it that little strip left of the arrow?
I think it's I think your arrow points
Well, that points
westward.
to the street.
Points to the road.
So it's a couple lots up. You see the 20-foot strip between, it's designated as lot 37.
No numbers I can see.
Yeah, well, the aerial picture we have to the left of the arrow, is if you're looking at it and you're going up, it looks like there's 2 yellow lines that would, that goes from the road to the beach or to the lake.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is the lot. There's a small number 37 right in the middle of it, depending if you're looking at it in color or black
Oh,
or
yeah, I
white.
see it now. Yep. Okay. All right. Yeah, and also in all those letters that we received, they said that there's boat docks that have been built there and, storage for kayaks and all this kind of stuff. Who's doing that?
Well, that may be, we're not sure about that, and we don't really know that that's, I don't think it's fair of us to foist that on the city. I think that that's more, the dock issue is a DES issue. Certainly we haven't found any permits for it. So we're going to be asking for the DES to open up a report on that. That may cut some of it down. And who may or may not be storing items on there, we're not sure about that either. So that's why we've tried to look at a multifaceted approach by first starting with deterring people from even parking there, then having a sign saying, if you're not an easement holder, you're not welcome here.
Yeah,
And
well, I
then-
think that would be
Who
up
owns
to
the lot?
your people that live there for that sign.
Right. Who owns lot 37?
That's a very good question, and I've done an awful lot of title work, and what I found was that the latest developer who owned it in the 1970s sold out all of his lots, but never conveyed that strip. It's arguable that it may be owned by the people on either side of that strip to the center line.
Scott, who pays the taxes on that lot?
Nobody.
I don't have that information in front of me right now.
According to the tax assessor, it's not taxed. It's referenced as ownership unknown. But I suspect how the city recognizes revenue from that is that each owner who has an easement right pays their. I'm not convinced that.
But Attorney Nato is correct. So when somebody has deeded beach rights or a deed of access to right of way to access water, it factors into value of the property. So we have a number of community beaches where people in their deeds either have rights to the beach or have rights, in this case, to legally trespass over a right of way for water access. And that certainly is reflected in sales price and assessed valuations.
If somebody is building on that lot, storage things and stuff like that, does that fall into that area?
We can take a look to see if there's anything that's been illegally built on there or in terms of somebody setting up a kayak rack or something, I'm not sure that falls to the level of it needing, a building permit, but nor would I really call that a significant improvement to the property. If they were putting in bathhouses or that type of stuff, certainly those would be permitted and somehow reflected into the easements for those properties that have access to it.
Well, as Bob says, as soon as we do it here, Yeah, I didn't recognize that at first. And all the people on the other side of where the no parking say they want the same thing. Want the same protection.
If they do, then it would show that, you know, just how bad the situation is. And it's got to start somewhere. I mean, my clients have spoken to people that I know in other circumstances, especially with COVID, that there are sites out there that, you know, encourage people where to go hiking, where to go find beach access. I know that the city of Laconia had a similar issue on Opeechee Lake this year, where people are coming from as far away as Campton and Wolfboro and Alton, and they plan to make a day of it.
Thank you, Attorney Nato. Are there any other questions of the attorney while we have her here?
I guess I'd like to still, I don't have a clear answer on the noticing issue.
There was no specific advertisement or mailings on this, as we're not required. And I know, you know, Councilor Felch had, when he initially submitted this and asked, I encouraged him to reach out to the folks who are requesting and encourage people to communicate. And I think he's done that with a number of emails that we've received.
So you don't feel we have any risk of a legal challenge from anybody that we haven't properly noticed, is what you're saying?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
If we, Cheryl, can you refresh my recollection? Do we have we've had a first and a second, and we're at the discussion phase. And if there are no other questions, we're ready to move to a vote. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions right now, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
That's 6 votes in the affirmative. The motion passes. Thank you, councilors, for your work on this issue. Thank you, Wes, and thank you, Attorney Nato. Moving along to number 21 on our agenda, which is unfinished business, 21A, which is the city's internal control policy. The internal control policy establishes procedures for proper control of city financial transactions and control over inventories and assets. Effective management requires periodic review of the internal control policy to account for new technologies, updated procedures, and regulatory changes. Revised updates to the policy were presented at the September 28th, 2020 council meeting. These were reviewed and amended by the Council's Finance Committee at their meetings of October 9th, 2020, October 23rd, 2020, and November 5th, 2020. The current revised policy reflects the recommendations of the Finance Committee. This was submitted by Glenn Smith, our Finance Director, and in order to get the discussion started, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the revised city internal control policy. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Any further questions or concerns about this? Maybe even a brief report from the committee that worked diligently on this.
I'm the chair, Mr. Mayor. I think that as part of the process of going through an audit, financial audit, that internal control policies are underlie the audit results that we have. We've had good results from our financial audits for a number of years in a row here. That being said, I think it periodically makes sense to review it. And as you mentioned, the committee had several to 4 meetings to go through this policy in detail with the management team. And I think the product in front of you fairly represents the work of the committee to try to improve. Internal controls are always something that can be continued to be refined. And I think the only thing I'd add to the recommendation that this be approved is that we set a specific time to have it reviewed again, a tickler that the clerk can keep track of.
Councilor Lippman, would you have a suggested time frame that this should come up for review again?
I would say at least every other year.
So I guess maybe it would be an amendment to the motion then, Councilor Lippman, that contingent on this approval of this motion,
So I guess we reviewed it in an even number year. I'd say every even number year that we review it post the financial audit. That would be a time that we'd learn of anything, right?
Okay. All right. So the internal control policy is to be reviewed in even numbered years.
Yeah, following the financial audit results.
Very good. We have that full motion, Madam Clerk.
I do, thank you.
Yes. And I think, having taken a look at this, I thought it was in pretty good shape when I read it initially, but certainly the improvements, you've put an awful lot of work into this, Councilor Lippman, and the entire Finance Committee, so thank you. Are there any other comments on the internal control policy? Oh, Councilor Haynes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sat through many of those meetings, and I'd like to thank the committee. They were very diligent, and they did an excellent job.
Thank you, Councilor Haynes. Any further questions? Seeing none or comments? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative. This motion passes, and thank you again for your work on this, councilors. Since we've moved, this would ordinarily be the time for council comments, but since we moved it up in the agenda, seeing no further issues on our agenda, I'd be inclined to make a motion to.
Mr.
Got
Mayor.
one more to do here.
Oh, okay. Whoops, sorry. Never mind.
We got the
Go right ahead.
Conservation Commission to vote on.
Oh, got it. Right, right. 21B. Thank you very much. Lost in all my paperwork here. Oh, yes. Got it. So moving on to 21B, which is the second reading and approval to amend City Code Chapter 5-30, Conservation Commission, Section B, amending number of members. This was open to a public hearing earlier this evening, which is the Conservation Commission making a recommendation to go from 7 full-time members and no alternates to 5 full-time members and up to 3 alternates. I'll be looking for 3 motions, a set of 3 motions here. The first is a motion to waive the reading of this ordinance in its entirety and to read by title only. Councilor Cheney, I don't even have to look up. I see your hand waving there. First, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. The second motion I'll be looking for is to move a second reading of ordinance 2020-5-30-B, amending membership of the Conservation Commission. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, be looking for a motion to approve ordinance 2020-5-30-B, amending membership of the Conservation Commission. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Susie. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Now we're on to 22, which was moved up in the agenda. And before we wrap up this city council meeting of December 14th, 2020, I just want to let those that are celebrating Hanukkah, wishing a happy and blessed festival of lights to our Jewish brothers and sisters, and to those celebrating Christmas, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I do see Councilor Cheney's hand up. I'm more than happy to have him recognized to speak.
Thank you. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas as well and a Happy Hanukkah, but I wanted to announce
Bruce, we may have lost you there. I think he was just getting to the good stuff too, I think.
I think it was a 3-hour speech he was going to do.
I'm sorry we lost him.
He ran out of bandwidth for the cable.
We're already squeezing it in his neck of the woods, right? Yeah. Let's give him a moment to dial in and check in again.
Mr. Mayor, I've got Counselor Cheney on the phone, so we've lost you on video, Counselor Cheney, but if you want to speak, you can go into my microphone and share what it was you're looking to share.
Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah, and to announce I intend to take a victory lap for winning the ugly Christmas sweater contest for the second year in a row.
That's really something to be proud of, Counselor. Yes, yeah. We'll make sure we're going to do a press release from the city to the Laconia Daily Sun, let you know. All right, that's great. Any other comments before we check out this evening? I'd like to declare the City Council meeting of December 14th, 2020 adjourned at 9:11 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Stay well, everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. To you as well.